So I know that this is still more of a Yuki episode since he's still the main focus, but it has been 12 videos since the last time we saw Kyo in a thumbnail, and he gets a pretty big moment this week, so yeah, Kyo's in the thumbnail. Anyway, hello everybody, welcome back to our weekly Fruits Basket Season 2 discussion video. Today we're talking all about episode 22, This Isn't What I Want! But before we get into it, quick reminder if you haven't done so yet to hit that sub button. And if you're already subbed, consider hitting the join button. Buttons for days! Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this video, shall we? Okay, so this week, there is something that I have to talk to you guys about. And I normally save these like additional note things for the end of videos because they're usually just like little bullet points about stuff that I didn't have time to talk about. But this particular note I kind of have to start with because it's not exactly the most pleasant news, and I'm the kind of guy who likes to save the best news for last, or like the fun stuff for last, get the less fun stuff out of the way. And the less fun thing that I gotta talk about is y'all let me down last week. Last week, some of the comments made in regards to something I said in the video was really distressing. I've never had you guys react like that, and it's not that it's necessarily I care if you disagree with me, because I've never really cared if you agree or disagree with me. Part of the fun of talking about anything is the discourse, so I actually like when you guys don't agree with me and make me see stuff in a different light. The problem is the way some of the comments were worded was a big friggin' bummer. Like, the people who out and out called out my childhood and the way I was raised because I said that Akito still came across like a bit of a brat, that made me really uncomfortable and was sort of uncalled for. So maybe let's not attack me personally because I didn't view a character the same way you guys did. And also, this is something that I noticed from other anime onlys saying the same thing, so I'm going to stand up on this weird high horse of mine and talk about this because I feel like maybe some anime onlys will feel better knowing that somebody's talking about this. And I've had other anime onlys reach out to me and say the same thing. I think this is like the first time this has happened with FruBa, but it was enough that I actually got responses and replies echoing the same thing that I felt, and that is that manga fans need to remember this. And I'm not saying all of you guys. A lot of you guys were actually backing me up and saying, well, he didn't know that yet. And I really appreciate that. It's just this small vocal minority, you know? It's just the small group of manga fans who seem to forget that myself and others are anime only, which means we only know the story and the characters so far. We don't know the full scope of everything yet, you know? We don't know the story like that. We don't know the full character arc for Akito because we don't read the manga. We only know what happens in the anime, and up until now, all we've ever seen is Akito's worst. So why are you surprised when anime onlys think the worst of them, when all we've seen is their worst? Maybe in the manga this is where Akito's like explanation, because I don't want to say redemption arc because I don't think that's gonna happen, but this is where the explanation of why Akito is the way that they are, maybe this is where it started, right? Like maybe that moment was where we started to kind of peel back the layers. And I will say that I am getting a better idea of who Akito is. In fact, I said as much in that video. But when I called Akito a brat and people got upset, you have to remember that I'm anime only, and I've only ever seen the worst in Akito. I'm sure you guys have a much better grasp of the character, but us anime onlys, when we call Akito the worst and you guys get defensive, it's confusing because we don't know Akito like that yet. So when I start getting attacked because I don't know the full scope of the character and being called stupid, like that was just such a bummer. It really bummed me the hell out. And I had to address it at the beginning of the next video. And I know this isn't the most fun thing to listen to, but man, like, guys, you really let me down. Some of you, not all of you, but like, that really bummed me out. But I understand that a lot of you guys just care immensely about Takuya Sensei's story and their characters, and believe me, I feel the same way. And I am excited to see where Akito's story goes. You know, I'm excited to see where Yuki's story goes, and Kyo's story, and Toru's, and everybody. But just try to remember that we only know what the anime has shown. We don't know the full scope of these characters just yet. So be patient. Let us figure this stuff out as we go, you know? Like, I understand that being a manga fan must be frustrating because you know things, but you can't say things. But just try not to get mad when we don't know the full scope of characters, you know? Like, hopefully we all good on that. And again, I love y'all, but yeah, that kind of bummed me out a little bit. But all good. Hopefully you guys aren't too mad at me. I'm not at all mad at you, just a little bit bummed out. But yeah, let's just actually talk about the episode now. Get this awkwardness out of the way. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, this is still mostly a Yuki-focused episode. Kyo absolutely gets a big moment to shine, but for the most part, it's still a Yuki episode. He still gets the most scenes, he gets the most development, although Kyo, again, like I said, does get some stuff that we will talk about as we go. Now, I want to start by pointing out that in the beginning, like the very beginning of the episode, before the OP even plays, we see some old clips of like way back in like episode 1, with Yuki like noticing that Toru was like living in a tent outside the estate, you know, and he just says like at first she was just some classmate that was like living in a tent, and he actually invited Toru to stay in an attempt to rebel, which I was like, oh, I didn't even think about it like that. I was like, wow, Yuki, damn, dude, like you didn't even think about Toru's feelings on that one. But ultimately, he found something far more important in that dynamic. And, you know, it's the motherly bond that he was looking for, which, again, I called it. But, yeah, it was over time. It wasn't something that happened immediately. And we even get some clarification on why Yuki was getting all flirty in Season 2. Remember, like, there was a couple moments where I was like, damn, Yuki, okay, I see you. Now we kind of get why he was behaving like that, which is really interesting to me. Kakeru explains that he doesn't really get why Yuki would like want a motherly figure, right? Like he says, like, I don't get it. Like why a mom and why Toru? Like I don't understand. And Yuki tries to explain that it's something that he's always wanted but never received, right? Like he never had a motherly connection with anybody. Not even motherly, just like he didn't for the longest time have a like parental relationship with anybody, a guardian type of dynamic with anyone, right? Like he would later gain friends like he has with like Momiji, Haru, like he would eventually gain a handful of friends, and he does obviously have connections with like with Shigure and Kyo, whether or not Kyo wants to admit it or not. But yeah, Yuki would eventually gain relationships, but not quite the relationship that he has with Toru, not quite that parental bond. And he describes it as wanting to sleep knowing he's loved unconditionally. That sort of protective nature, right? Where it's like, not even protective, but nurturing. Where no matter what, you know that they have your back. That unconditional love, like that's something Yuki had been searching for a long time. And he actually gets that with Toru, which is so friggin' sweet. And it's interesting because I didn't even connect that this is when it happened, but Yuki realized these feelings the night that Kyo transformed, because he saw Toru run after Kyo, and like Yuki just stood there like mystified watching Toru run out like after Kyo, and in that moment he says like when she ran like a woman, and I saw her as a woman, not just my classmate, not just Toru, but a strong woman, a strong independent woman, and that really that he could see her as someone who he felt safe around, so someone who could help nurture him and be there for him in the way that she was being there for Kyo, and the way that he knows that she's there for him. And that moment scared him, like realizing how he felt, like watching her run after Kyo. And it's why Yuki's tried to put the moves on Toru all this time, because he actually wanted to shut that away. Like, he didn't like the idea that the reason why he felt so close to Toru wasn't because he was into her, but because he wanted that motherly connection. He felt embarrassed about it, and he wanted to shut that away. And so he tried to put the moves on Toru, but he knew it always felt weird and wrong. And I was like, oh my god, Yuki, the honesty in this boy is shocking me. Like, this felt like Yuki's character has almost gone completely around his arc. Like, as though, like, Yuki's arc is almost finished at this point. We actually get to know Yuki so much between last episode and this episode in ways that I'm shocked he's admitting to anybody. But the fact that it's Kakaru, our boy Thief, it makes a lot of sense given how their relationship has been building up over season 2. And seeing him admit that, like, the reason why he was all flirty was literally just because he was trying to force away those feelings. And this might get vaguely personal, but it's not quite the same way. But the way that Yuki tries to put the moves on people in a way to try to, like, hide how he's actually feeling is hella relatable. For a long time, I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I grew up not feeling, like, not so much romantically. I did feel romantic feelings, but as an asexual dude, I grew up not really feeling sexually connected to people. So I would try my best to do so, and it always felt like wrong. Like, it never felt like, no matter who it was, I never quite felt what I was supposed to be feeling. So when he said that, I couldn't help but relate very heavily to Yuki. Even though for Yuki, it's that he felt a motherly bond to Toru instead of a romantic one, and that sort of freaked him out. And he always knew it was wrong every time he tried to be romantic with Toru. Like, it never quite clicked. And it just felt very genuine hearing Yuki admit this out loud. And, like, the honesty is insane. It's nuts. And even when Kakaru says, like, so, are you sure this isn't just you being upset that you feel like you're losing to Kyo? And Yuki said, absolutely not. Like, to him, it was, like, the idea that Kyo loves Toru doesn't scare him. You know, like, because he could see it in Kyo's eyes, and he knows that Toru loves Kyo too because of the way that the pair of them look at each other. And I'm thinking, like, Yuki's on board the Kyoru ship, but, like, Yuki loves this shit too. God damn, you love to see it. And even then, it's funny because Yuki at one point says, more than anyone else, I want you to be happy, which is something that is so heavily echoed in the scene where he explains to Kakaru that, like, no, he is perfectly okay with Kyo loving Toru and Toru loving Kyo because he knows that that's what they want. And instead of getting in the way, he's happy to help that along. He's happy to get the two of them together because it means that Toru will be happy. And above all else, that's what Yuki wants. He wants Toru to be happy. And he also wants to be independent, find that special, like, find that special purpose for himself, you know? And I have a feeling like that special purpose might be with a certain mousy character that we have come to know over time. And I feel like that's so genuine. Like, there's so many relationships there's so many, like, boy-girl dynamics, not just in anime, but in fiction in general, are always, like, predicated on, like, will they, won't they? So I like that Yuki Toru is this great example of, like, just two people who genuinely care immensely about each other, who love each other unconditionally, and it's not romantic, it's platonic. And they actually want to help each other, like, find a good partner, live a good life. It's just a very genuine bond. I loved these two to death, and it's nice to see Yuki admit that his feelings for Toru are very much, like, platonic and very, like again, like, he feels like he just wants that motherly love from Toru, and Toru is probably happy to give him that. Not that he says that he'll be admitting this anytime soon, which does make sense. He wants Toru to sort of, like, just be with them for a while before he actually admits how he feels. It's also worth noting that Aya and Mine come back into this episode, and I missed Mine a lot, which surprises me. I super missed Aya, but, like, y'all know I already love Aya. Aya really gunning for that husbando spot with me, which is surprising considering, you know, Shigure and Hattori, but Aya really be making that play. And Mine is just the best. I love Mine a lot. But, yeah, basically Yuki asks, well, doesn't ask, but, like, sort of implies that he needs some help from Aya, and Aya, of course, is like, yes, of course, I will help my brother. Of course I'll help you, my little Yuki, right? Like, of course he gets all excited at the idea of helping Yuki. And it's a sweet moment, you know, it's nice to see Aya be the big brother for Yuki, because again, like, the two of them, especially after last week where we're reminded that Aya never was the best big brother growing up, and he's really trying to fix that now, that, like, that flashback from last week with Aya, where, like, some of the attendants even said, like, does Aya even know that Yuki's his little brother? And it's like, damn, like, it's funny to pair that scene to the Aya that we see in this week's episode, where he is so gung-ho and way over the top with his love for his little brother. And it's so sweet to see how far Aya has come. Because, yeah, Aya in the past was a little shit and just flat out ignored Yuki. And it feels heartless in that last week's episode, and yet to see it here and how their relationship has grown and evolved, it's really, really sweet. And again, Aya's grown a lot as a character, especially in season 2, but it's nice to see Aya not only helping Yuki, but actually like using the skills that we've seen him have, like this skill for making clothing, like actually come into play and be helpful in the story. You'll love to see it. Takuya Sensei using her skills appropriately to flesh out these characters and make them fun. And Mine going nuts over getting like some new models, like when she reunites with Toru and then she like meets Uo. There's a great moment between Mine and Hana where Hana's like, please make my dress all black. And she's like, all black, that sounds wonderful. Like the two of them have like a really sweet dynamic already. It's nice to see Mine come back. I really like Mine a lot. So yeah, it's cool to see Aya and Mine. But I think the biggest thing with Yuki this week is him bumping into Machi Mouse again. The moment where he kind of bumps into Machi and her classmate Yamagishi, and Yama here says that she's bummed that Yuki isn't the prince in the play. And Yuki sort of like is brushing it off. And there's a big moment that happens like right before this that we're going to get into in just a sec. So the fact that Yuki is so calm after that moment is very much a testament to Yuki Soma's ability to be calm in the face of absolute insanity. But Yuki, Yuki's seen some shit, so he has a great ability to calm his nerves depending on the situation, unless it's Akito. But even then, my boy be getting very calm these days. But Yuki's just like, hey guys, yeah, it is what it is, and yeah, I didn't really want to be the prince this go round, and yada yada. And our girl Yama here says, again, like, I really think that of all the people I know, you were the most prince-like, so I was surprised that you didn't want to be the prince. Isn't that right, Machi? And our girl Machi Mouse says some shit that put me on my heels and surprised the hell out of Yuki, seemingly. And it's that she says that Yuki is nothing like a prince. And then she just kind of pimps away. And I was like, what the hell was that about? Not like a prince. Yuki is easily, like, the most prince-like in the whole show. Machi, what you talking about? Right? And, I mean, we know that that's not the case, but as far as everybody else knows, yeah, Yuki does seem like a prince. It's hell, friggin' Kyo calls him a prince at one point during their little argument. But, yeah, to the outside looking in, Yuki is a hell of a lot like a prince, but we know that ain't exactly the case. But seemingly, Machi notices this too. And I think because Machi knows that they're sort of kindred spirits, and Machi absolutely doesn't see herself as royalty. And after Machi Mouse says that, and again, just saunters away, Yuki's left looking hella shocked. Like, this really does rattle him in a way that he wasn't expecting. And again, I don't think it's because, like, Yama says, like, isn't that mean? Like, I'm sorry that she said that. But I don't think Yuki saw that as mean. I think Yuki saw that as somebody who kind of might be able to understand him, which is interesting. Again, we'll have to keep our eye on the whole Machi Mouse and Yuki thing, because I like this ship a hell of a lot. But yeah, for now, we'll have to keep our eye on it. And of course, the big thing that happens this week, even though this is, again, mostly a Yuki story, but there is something really big that happens this week, and that is with Kyo. But before we can get into that, we do have to talk a little bit about what happens that gets Kyo all angry that leads up to this moment. So, we find Toru and Shigure in the kitchen in a panic because Shigure is trying to understand why Toru is freaking out, and Toru says that she's unable to learn her lines and she's flustered because, she's playing like the evil stepsister, which is not great, or like the stepmother. I don't remember what she is. She's either the evil stepmother or the evil stepsister. I can't quite remember. But she's in a panic, right? Because she's like, I can't say these things. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying, but I can't learn them all. There's so many lines and right? Like just being Toru. And Kyo kind of blows a gasket when he finds out that Shigure now knows that he's going to be a prince. He's not exactly pleased with that. And Shigure absolutely is just like, I'm going to record it. This is going to be hilarious. Like Kyo the prince? That's so funny. But this leads to like Toru and Kyo flirting a wee bit. They be flirting. And Yuki sort of saunters in and is like, guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to kind of get through the front gate here. Not the front gate, but like the entryway. Could I go to my room, please? You guys are in the way. And And, like, Toru gets called away by Shigure because he's like, Toru, the pot's bubbling over. I can't cook. I don't know what's going on. Like, he doesn't say it like that, but you could tell it's like, Shigure, just turn the heat down. But, you know, he's like, I don't know what's going on. The pot's bubbling over. Toru, help. So Toru runs. And Yuki says to Kyo, and this is probably, the screenshot I'm using is probably Kyo's reaction to hearing this. But Yuki says to Kyo that Toru has the hat now. So you'll have to forgive him for not giving it back. And this seemingly really rattles Kyo. Like, this absolutely puts this boy on his heels. And he is somewhere between shocked and angry. And, like, his hair does the, like, I swear it does the friggin', the Ghibli thing where, like, the hair rises up, you know? Where it's like, whoa, like the hair rising with the emotions. And again, I don't think Yuki said this to be mean at all, but that seems to be the way Kyo took it. I don't know. I was sort of surprised. This moment kind of confused me. And in a good way, right? Like, you're supposed to feel the way Yuki feels, where it's like, what? That's not the reaction I thought it was gonna be. I think Yuki said that to just let Kyo know that Toru has the hat. I think Yuki is still trying to get Kyo just to talk to him like an adult. Well, not an adult, but, you know, they're teenagers. But, you know, talk to him like a human. You know, be mature about it, but obviously mature in Kyo. As much as I love Kyo to death, Kyo is not exactly the most mature character in the show. So Kyo seemingly gets mad. And I don't know if he's mad at Yuki or if he's mad at himself. Because don't forget, like, Kyo was really cold to Yuki. Because Kyo never really saw Yuki struggling the way that we know that he was. So Kyo ends up later on in the episode recalling being disgusted when Yuki found his hat. You know, like, he felt like, Yuki touched it, so I don't want to touch the hat again, and blah, blah, blah. And this leads to that scene in the hallway. Yuki basically runs to find Kyo because Kyo's still not at rehearsal, and Kyo's still musing about the hat, right? He's still upset thinking about how cruel he was to Yuki, but at the same time, how much he probably felt justified in being angry. And Kyo basically just lets Yuki have it in this moment. Like, once Yuki finds him, Kyo is pissed the instant Yuki says the word Toru, right? He's like, don't you bring her into this. Like, he gets pissed off, and he screams at him, you have a dad and a mom, and you were praised by others and are needed by them. Which, like, holy shit. Kyo, you have no idea at all what this boy is going through. And this is one of those moments where I was like, Kyo is one of my favorite characters in this show. Like, 100% one of my favorite characters. And I love him to pieces. But this is one of those moments where you love somebody so much, but you hear them say something that just makes you want to slap them across the face. Like, just their arrogance and their ignorance bothers you so much that you just want to slap them. And that was the moment where I'm like, you don't know a damn thing, and you think you do, and that's what's upsetting. You don't know Yuki, you know? Like, Yuki, at the very least, understands to an extent what you've gone through, because, you know, you're the cat spirit, so he at least knows that you've been shunned by others, and Akito has told him how much your life sucks, right? But you never learned how much Yuki's life sucked. Yuki almost died, and all he wanted was to be your friend, and you act like a dick. Because, again, that's what you think you know, but you don't know shit. And it breaks my heart, damn it. Like, it breaks my heart because, again, Takuya-sensei, with the writing of the gods, because it makes perfect sense. Of course Kyo wouldn't know. Like, how would he know? Of course he doesn't know, right? So it's like, damn it, Kyo, I just want to slap you and tell you that you don't know shit. Because you don't know shit. But it's not your fault that you don't know shit. How would you possibly know this? Like, how could he possibly know anything about what Yuki's gone through? Because Yuki's as sure as shit not gonna tell him. So, like, yeah, of course he doesn't know. And it's just like, this seed broke my heart. Because it's like, you just want to grab Kyo and shake him and be like, just be his friend. You don't know anything about what he's been through. Like, all he wants to do is be your friend. And when he gives him that look, like, Yuki gives him this look, and Kyo, I think for a second, like, realizes, like, oh no, I'm the asshole. Like, oh no, I'm the one in the wrong. and he recalls words of wisdom from our girl, Kyoko with the wisdom, saying, don't you want it that way? You wouldn't want not having anyone to hate, right? And that makes Kyo lose it, and he punches a window, which is a little bit reckless, you know, like, not only does he, not only does he scratch his own hand, it doesn't look, like, the cut didn't look that deep, thank God, but he does, you know, draw blood, which I don't know if I'll be able to show. It's not that bad. I've been able to get away with a little bit of blood here and there in these videos, but, yeah, not only does he break a window, drawing some blood, but he easily could have, like, sent shards down on somebody's head, so it's like, Kyo, come on, right? But, like, again, it's Kyo. That makes a hell of a lot of sense. Of course he'd do that. Like, everything that I'm always like, come on, is normally, like, with Takia, like, with FruBa in general, it's normally stuff that I'm like, but that makes sense. Like, anytime I'm like, why are you acting like that? I'm like, well, I know why you're acting like that, because it's within your character. Everything that happens, I'm like, yeah, of course Kyo would act like that. And, yeah, Kyo just basically leaves in a huff, and that's pretty much where we end the episode, honestly. There is this great scene where Toru basically stays behind to wait for Kyo, and the two share this unbelievably sweet moment. Oh, it's the sweetest friggin' thing, because Toru says, like, hey, they rewrote the script, and they, like, touched up your parts, and they fixed up mine, although that's because I was a bad actor, but, like, we ain't gonna talk about that. And I'm like, no, Toru, like, it's not that you're a bad actor, it's that you were totally miscast, you know, it's not your fault. And Kyo is just sort of, like, listening to her, and when Toru says, like, your hand, and somebody pointed this out on Twitter, so I can't claim responsibility. I don't remember who said this on Twitter, and forgive me, but somebody said on Twitter how when, like, the difference, so you see Kyo's hand multiple times in this episode. You see it twice, right? Like, the bleeding hand, you see it twice. When he's around Yuki, his hand is clenched, and it's, like, angry, you know, like, he's, like basically still ready for a fight. So his hand is clenched, he's nervous, he's on his guard, he doesn't feel safe and comfortable. But when he's with Toru, his hand is unclenched, his hand is loose, because he feels like he can be calm around her. And it's like, oh my god, Kyoru is the way. Kyoru is just the way. But they do share this really sweet scene, and it even makes Toru, like, flustered enough where she gets kind of emotional after Kyo leaves the room. But yeah, they do share a moment, it is very sweet, but I feel like after all this Yuki development, I have a feeling like the next few episodes might be Kyo development, which I'm very much looking forward to. And speaking of next week, actually, at the very least, the coming weeks, I don't know if I think the coming weeks will be about Kyo, but next week, I think, is going to be the play. And y'all, I am very, very excited to see the play. But with that said, everybody, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big, big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names. And hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are now 2 ways to do so. The first is by checking out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, and the second, for just a little bit more, is by hitting that join button, and you get yourself a nifty badge next to your name in the comments and the premieres, and you get yourself some emotes to spam in premiere chats as well. So if that sounds cool to you, don't forget to hit that join button, or check out the Patreon link as well. Also, I should point this out, I changed the list of names at around like the 5th or the 6th of every month. So if you haven't seen your name show up yet, it's because around like the 5th or 6th of September, that's when the names change. So you'll see your name listed here very soon, if not. And again, if you're even considering joining, thank you so much. It is super appreciated. So once again, a big thank you to the T Squadron, but that's it from me. So until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.